So Chip Kelly has stepped down as head coach from UCLA, moved on to Ohio State as the offensive coordinator, and the next 30-day transfer portal window is open again at UCLA, another mass migration of players. Changes have to be made in the NCAA for college football. What are those changes? Talk about that next on the ProZone. Welcome to the ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So Chip Kelly has stepped down as the head coach from UCLA. And to many surprises, he became the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Okay? Well, why are these coaches stepping down? Saban has retired. You have Chip Kelly. Some others are moving on. So why? Well, most of it has to do with name, image, and likeness, which is pay for play, and the transfer portal. Because once Chip Kelly stepped down, the rules are if a head coach retires, quits, or is fired, the NCAA, the member schools, I should say, voted, and the NCAA allows a 30-day transfer portal window. So all players on that team can now enter the transfer portal and leave the school. I don't understand why. I mean, basically what we're doing with this 30-day transfer portal is you're coddling these players. Oh, poor you, your coach left, so now you get to leave and take your ball and go home because it doesn't go your way. Now, looking at it from the player's perspective, I understand that. You develop a relationship with your coach. Your coach recruits you. Your head coach is supposed to be kind of a mentor, but let's be real about this. Most players don't really interact with the head coach. I played Division I ball. You don't. You interact with the assistant coaches. That's really where you develop your relationship, your position coaches. You don't get it with the head coach. Head coach comes by once in a while, gives you the pep talk before a game, might check in to see how you're doing, but for the most part, not really. So I don't get it that, like, if you're the coach and the head coach doesn't recruit you, like the recruiter recruits you, and then the head coach comes back, and at the very end, when he's really trying to get you, especially if you're a top-tier player, then he's going to come in and try to schmooze you a bit to win you over. That's how it works. So when a head coach leaves, it's not really hurting your personal relationship. It's hurting the business relationship, right? Okay, and maybe your assistant coaches will leave because the head coach left. I understand that. But here's the rub. If these college players want to be treated and paid like pros with name, image, and likeness, and be able to leave when they want to and transfer portal, which is basically a glamorized free agency, then they should be treated contractually like the pros. Now, I've posted this online in socials and asked the question, and you get the same kind of pushback. Well, the coaches can leave whenever they want to leave. I said, yes, I understand that. That also has to change. It's not an all or nothing or an either or. It all has to change. That's why NCAA needs to be scrapped and restructured. It has to be. Now, I know that the NCAA is proposing a change. Southeast Conference and Big Ten Conference formed an advisory group. This was released back on, what was that date? February 2nd of this year. Okay, of 2024. It says here, posted online, Birmingham, Alabama, February 2, 2024. The Big Ten Conference and the Southeastern Conference today announced the formation of a joint advisory group of university presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors to address the significant challenges facing college athletics and the opportunities for betterment of the student-athlete experience. Okay, these challenges including, but not limited to, recent court decisions, pending litigation, a patchwork of state laws, and complex governance proposals compel the two conferences to take a leadership role in developing solutions for a sustainable future of college sports. This comes about a month after the NCAA, head of the NCAA, said, we want to create a sub-conference for the FBS schools that all it does is contain all of the schools that are like the big money schools where kids make big nil money. And we will then have different rules at that level and handle nil through the schools. He's trying to propose something. They don't have it all ironed out. They just kind of threw up an idea and floated the trial balloon on that one. So they know something's up. And par for the course, you remember schools keep passing all these rules. The NCAA, they're not even on top of it. They have been caught. Like I talked to them last March, about a year ago, and I was talking to them about the whole name, image, and likeness and the rules about it. And I said, "Are you guys even aware of the College Athlete Protection Act?" And they're like, "The what? This is the NCAA legal." Like the what's that? I said, "The college. I'm going to do a whole video on College Athlete Protection Act, shorter video, but because it's just proposed legislation. But that's how name, image, and likeness started." NIL started as proposals by the states to allow players to get paid. And I think about 31 states currently allow NIL. And every state has different rules. I'm not going to deep dive into the rules of each state. But that's what they were mentioning in this press release from the Southeast Conference of Big Ten, that there are all this litigation and legislation that they have to consider. So, because like certain states, you can get signed a NIL deal when you're in high school, but other states you can't, like Tennessee. Oh, I have a show coming up about that lawsuit on the football player who the NCAA is putting the hammer down on because he signed a NIL deal while he was still in high school, and that's illegal in the state of Tennessee. Every state's a little bit different. That's something that's a mess. They allowed it to get away from them because the NCAA was asleep at the switch. And the member schools did not see it coming. They were blindsided by this. Clearly, they were blindsided by this. So they have no rules to cover it. There's no governance of it, really, in the grand scheme of things. And you have pay-per-play when it comes to name, image, and likeness. It's just a hot mess. So with these proposals that are coming out, this new vision of the NCAA, let's make it pretty simple. The NCAA, you're going to have to, every level gets NIL money. Everyone can get paid NIL. Reading here from NBC New York, this is dated 2022, okay? So it's about a year ago. But this is the most recent article we had about how much money these players make in name, image, and likeness, okay? If you don't know what name, image, and likeness is, go back, watch some previous episodes. I kind of cover that, but basically it's getting paid to sponsor products, okay? I'm going to do another video on NIL. It's like a deep dive on that. I'm working up to it. I'm piecemealing it together, but there's a lot to it. So I don't want to make it too long, but I want to make a lot of small videos to kind of explain what NIL is in detail because it's confusing. It really can be. It's not as simple as someone's just getting paid. There's more to it. But let's look at the basics of it. When you're getting a sponsorship, whether it be through a NIL collective or from a business directly, you have, here it says, annual compensation for an athlete in the NCAA Divisions 1 through 3 combined is about $3,438. By division, Division 1 athletes saw an average of $3,711, 204 in Division 2, and $309 in Division 3. It doesn't seem like a lot, but that's the average. Some players are making very, very little. Also, players are making none. And then other players are making a lot. There's one player here from Maryland, head coach Mike Loxley was quoted. He said, this is from 24/7 Sports, because of this portal, NIL, your third team tailback coming in and saying, quote, I need $100,000 or I'm going into the portal. And you're like, where does this magic $100,000 number come from? That's the problem. You have players who are just pulling numbers out of the air saying, I want to make this much money because I know some guy over here who's a top tier player is making X. Well, that's not how it works. So these players don't understand. You have young, no disrespect, okay? I've been there. Been a Division I player, been a young guy, get it. But young guys don't have a clue about anything. I mean, you really don't. They just don't. You're 17 years old right out of high school. You don't have a clue. You don't understand how business works. You don't understand how life works yet. You're in your protective little bubble in high school where if things don't go your way, your parents go and cry to the athletic directors, and the athletic directors lay the hammer down on the coach, and then coach has to cave and give you your way. That's the problem. For years, a whole generation of these kids have been given their way. Participation trophies in sports, coddling, and you don't get your way. Well, it's not your fault. It's somebody else's fault. That has been a whole slew of discipline or responsibility taught to a lot of the kids. It's not all of them, but there are a lot of them, and I experience it a lot because I deal with athletes on a regular basis in my business. I market athletes. That's part of my business. So you have these players who just don't have a clue about anything. And now they're wanting money. One guy was going to enter during the transfer portal back in December, January. I forget what school he was with, but he demanded $1 million, an increase from $500,000 to $1 million in NIL money, or he's going to enter the transfer portal. He gave that up later on. I guess someone talked sense into him, and he decided to stay with his team and not enter the portal after all. But these are kids that are writing checks that their bodies cannot cash. I mean, if you're a third team player, you're not worth that additional money in college. You're not. Okay? You have different tiers of play and different tiers of value. That's just how it is. So what you need to do, I think the NCAA needs to, if they want to be paid like adults, paid like pros, and treated like adults, then you have to treat them like adults in a league. And I'm saying, if you take the NCAA, you get rid of it. And now you just call it the NCFL, the National Collegiate Football League. That could apply to mostly Division I, and maybe the NCAA is the overall governing body over everything, but then the NCFL is your Division I schools. 2s and 3s fall under NCAA because it's not as stringent. And Division III, you're not going to get big money, or D2, because really there's no value in athletes at Division II and Division III. I don't see audiences clamoring to get a whiff of what someone's saying at a Division III school. They're just not going to. Division III schools are more for play the game because you love it and make sure you have good academics and you could afford your tuition. That's kind of what it's like, and get academic money. There's not a hell of a lot in terms of marketability or value at Division III, and really not that much at Division II, which is why the no numbers are so low, because there's no demand in it. So the NCFL should, I think, focus on the Division I teams, okay? From there, then you have to develop contracts for these players. All right. Now, the players will sign contracts. There's a NIL contract forms online, and a lot of the lawyers are salivating over this because it means a lot of business for them. They get to negotiate contracts and write contracts and litigate and all that stuff. They love it. But you're going to have to sign a contract with the school. But wait, don't they sign contracts already with schools? Yes, they do. That's your letter of intent. Your letter of intent is your contract to play for that school. And if they say we're going to offer you a full ride, a 4-year deal at the school, 4-year deal, then you sign the contract, you're with the school. Now, the rub is the school has the opportunity to renew that contract or not renew that contract every year by July 1st at the end of the first year. So if you're a freshman, July 1st, end of your freshman year, they could say, you know what, you're not meeting academic, athletic requirements, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, we're not going to honor your scholarship. Do they commonly do that? No. All you got to do is check the boxes and make sure you're in good shape. Can they do that? Absolutely, because you're not holding up to your end of the deal. It's like team cutting you. Okay, you're signing a year-to-year deal. It's 4 years on a year-to-year basis. That's basically what it is. There's no guarantee. However, what they need to do now is in college, you have 4 years and a redshirt year, okay? Redshirt year, that's basically you're practicing, you're lifting, working out, but you're not suiting up for the game, so you don't lose time of your eligibility, It's just getting you in shape. It's for players that are they don't have room for on the roster, or players who need to work on their grades a little bit more, or players who have to transition. Like if you're a lineman and you're not quite to that level, or a quarterback, you're not quite to that level, they'll say, you get a red shirt for a year so we can get you bigger, get you stronger, get you faster, because we know you have the potential, but we need to get your game up so you can do your full 4 years. And you're not losing eligibility when you do that. So you can have a 4-year contract, a 5-year contract, or a 1-year contract. I would say if you're going to do this in the NCFL, then you should have, for the really blue chip stud athletes that you really want, your quote unquote 5 stars, those guys, you can give them a 5-year deal, 4 years in a red shirt, or a 4-year if you think they're going to play right away to start to get into their eligibility right off the bat. They're going to play a lot as a freshman, rock and roll, okay? True freshman, as they call that. If you're going to be redshirted for a year, well, this is where the rub comes in. You're getting a 5-year deal. Should you get paid the same amount as a starting player, a player in the 4 years of eligibility, if you're in the practice squad, basically, not playing, not suiting up, in a redshirt year? Well, probably not. So that's when we have to get into pay. So how do you pay these athletes? Okay, so adding this so we can get back to the original point here, back to the contract. Right now, there are no collectives. No collectives are offshoots of a school, but they're not affiliated with the school. Some are nonprofit organizations, 105c3s. Some of them are just independent groups who were boosters. Alumni businesses get together, wealthy people get together, and they collect money and pool their money to give NIL deals to players. A lot of teams have their own NIL collective affiliated with the team. Tennessee just got Florida State just got into big trouble. Look at a previous video. I talk about that, about FSU and the NCAA laying a hammer down on them. They got in trouble because they have a NIL collective, and the NIL collective was paying a player to convince him to come play, offered him it was like $15,000 a month to come play for the team. And then the coach got involved and drove the kid to the meeting, facilitated the meeting, which crossed the lines. And that's my Worlds Colliding video. You can take a look at that. So that's how they do it. They're paying kids to play. So they're already working. They're not working for the team. They're not part of the team, but they are working for the team. It's a real weird gray area, okay? And what the NCAA needs to do if they create the NCFL is you have to rein in all of those NIL collectives. And you have to allow them to be part of, or force them to be part of, the team itself. And then that money that's being paid to those athletes can be managed, can be at least observed by the NCAA, or by the governing body. You have to enact a commissioner. You have to have a governing body. You remember schools, like they have player representatives. You have to have player representatives in the NCFL. You have to have coaches that are team representatives in the NCFL. That's your member schools, and they have a select group of people that they nominate, vote on, who are the representatives of the coaches, of the teams, and representatives of the actual players themselves. That has to be done. Otherwise, it's going to get crazy, okay? It's already nuts, but you have to have controls. And then having the NIL back into the actual school, which I think is what the NCAA is proposing for that subcommittee, having that back in with the team itself, now you have more governance over the money that's being paid. You have more visibility on that under the NCFL and the NCAA, okay? You also have visibility on the contracts that these players sign. Because when I was speaking to NCAA Legal about the NIL agreements, they basically told me that we have no visibility over these contracts. We don't know what the contracts say, and we have no control over that. So it could be a term on a contract that screws a player over. And if they're not careful about it and they don't hire a lawyer to review the contract, then what will happen is it could be, oh, if you get hurt, we're done. We're terminating your deal and you get nothing. And then it leaves kids out flapping. He's got, nowhere to go. They recommend in the NCAA, the language, they recommend in the literature to have somebody review your contract, make sure they understand what's there, make sure your terms are clear, but they have no governance over that. By reeling it all in, then you have the NCFL representatives, player personnel reps, who can review contracts, and then they can make sure these kids are protected. Now you get to pay these kids, and you can pay them whatever you need to pay them. But back to the rub. If you're on a 4-year contract, you're paid X, okay? Say they're giving you, like that one player was getting $15,000 a month, which is ludicrous, but he's getting paid $15,000 a month, or was offered $15,000 a month. If you're paid that, great. About if it's for a year, you're looking at about $180,000. Okay, so that's what you're getting paid. But if you're a 5-year deal with a red shirt included in the 5 years, you're not worth that money yet because you're only on red shirt. Now that's going to have players not want to do red shirt, but in the NFL, when you sign up with a team and you sign a contract, if they don't think you're good enough, then what they do is they put you on the practice squad and you get paid like $60,000 to be on the practice squad in the NFL. All right, I think it's like $60,000, something like that. It's something low. You don't make a whole lot of money on the practice squad, so you're on practice squad. You're paid the minimum, and you're just the bare bones minimum, and you're just there running practice for teams. That's the same kind of thing that has to apply. Will the players want to go redshirt? Well, they don't have a choice. Like in the NFL, they won't have a choice. They need to back end the deals. So if you're looking at, if you're looking at a 5-year deal, then that deal has to be back ended. So it's less money up front, especially if you're being redshirted, less money on the first year, and then a little more once you're actual active roster, and then more again after that. And then third and fourth year, you get paid the bulk of your money. So here are the terms of your contract, X amount of dollars in a certain 5-year window, but it's lower here, higher here. That has to be done as an incentive to keep the players on the team. If they want that money, then they need to stay. And then if another team wants them, if they want to leave and enter the transfer portal after, the thing is that's the rub too. If you put them in a 5-year deal, they can't enter the transfer portal. They're not allowed to do that because they're under contract and they've signed an obligation. If you want to be treated like adults, you have to play adult games. But what if our coach is fired? Just like the NFL. Coaches get fired, players have to work out their contract. Now, they could refuse to show up to practice and sit out. Fine. If you want to sit out, okay, you want to play the game that the adults play, then do it. The problem you have here is you only have 4 years of eligibility. And if you choose to sit out, the NCAA is not going to come to bat to you and say, or come back for you and say, we'll give them that extra year of eligibility because, something happened. No, it doesn't matter. It's not like you were injured. You chose to sit out. So there's repercussions for your actions. And it also would show the coaches how serious these kids are to go play for their team. It would also show the kids how serious the coaches are to commit to them for up to 5 years. They could do a simple 2-year deal. Simple 2-year deal. Hey, look, we're going to give you 2 years, freshman, sophomore year. At the end of the 2-year deal, we'll offer you an extension. But if you don't want that extension, then you can enter the transfer portal and then be picked up by another team. And then you can start negotiating in terms of, well, I was making X amount of dollars at UCLA, but now you want to pick me up for Ohio State. How much are you willing to pay me? And that's where the negotiations come in. So that's what needs to be done. That's the basics of it. Then you have to have rules. You're going to bring in unions. You're going to have collective bargaining agreements. And really the teams should, especially your FCS should all have it and your FBS should all have it. You should have revenue sharing like the NFL does. The teams should revenue share. It would level the playing field. The bigger the schools have big money, they share it all together. So everyone's benefiting from it in terms of revenue. It probably needs to be looked into because that's what NFL does, and it adds to parity for the league. Those are the basics. I think it needs to be done for these players so you understand that it's not a free-for-all and you have commitment. The problem you have with a lot of kids is they'll sign a deal and then they can leave whenever they want to leave. So they're not going to honor the deal. There's for some players, yeah, there's loyalty, but more and more players, or fewer and fewer players, have loyalty nowadays. They just say, I'm thinking for myself because you're used to getting their own way. I said, I'm just going to leave. Well, if the coach is going to leave, then I'm just going to leave. Well, now it doesn't work that way. Now you can offer deals to coaches. That has to be done. 2, 3, 4-year deals for a coach, depending on how good they are. They could have offered a 10-year deal to Saban and say, stay here for 10 years or 8 years. We want you to stick it out. And he could choose to stay. That would be the nice thing, because what it does is it lends stability to the program. It gives you players now that are going to be on this team for up to 4 years, really active 4 years, 1 year redshirt. So 4 years of actually seeing a player develop. The fan base develops a following. The fans start getting a connection with the players. And if you're doing a NIL deal, that player starts gaining recognition because the local businesses who are being advertised to with this player's image and name will start to recognize that player. And now that means that player's worth the money you're paying him for name, image, and likeness. It just makes perfectly good sense. Back in the day, we never thought about this. Players would go into a team, they'd play there for a while. If they wanted to transfer, they'd request it. It was not easy to get a transfer, but it wasn't too hard. And you transfer. But people back in the day had loyalty. They would just stick it out and stay on the team. And that's what it was. They didn't just up and leave whenever they wanted to and chasing the bigger, better dollar. And you don't want to get into that. You're basically the amateurism of college sports is wrecked. It's gone. I mean, it's gone. The fans are there. They're still students, but once you're adding money into it and pay for play, once you're entering transfer portal and people leaving whenever they want to leave, the amateurism is gone. So you may as well just make it into a new league. I like it as the NCFL. That's what I suggest. Make it the NCFL and get contracts for these kids and then start stabilizing your rosters and develop more rules. I'm not going to get into all the little rules, but maybe someday down the road, if I come up with some good ideas, I'll throw those together as well. That's my suggestion. That's what I think will fix the process and cut back on this mass exodus every time a coach is fired or quits in this 30-day transfer portal window that UCLA is now going through. What do you think? I'd like to hear your feedback on if you think something like the NCFL is a good idea. You may not think it's a good idea, but I know where I stand. Let me hear what you stand. Let me know in the comments. Message me on Instagram or on X at RecruitBoss. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for listening. Appreciate it. Know your goal. Oh, hi there. Thanks for watching the ProZone. Hope you check back for more episodes. And if you haven't done so already, like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we have coming up next. Can anybody solve this?